just kind of make you worry a little less if you're worried at all. Just know that you have the support of your counselors, you have the support of the staff at all of these colleges to which you will be applying, and that we understand. And we know that things are going to be different this year, so therefore we have to be a little different this year in terms of of how we are evaluating applications. So I'm going to back it up a little and just talk about normal things that I talk about in normal years when it comes to the application process. And I'm not going to be specific to Brown, but I'm going to talk in generalities. But you'll find that a lot of these colleges, especially these very selective colleges, pretty much have similar processes and similar requirements in terms of submitting your application. So you're going to want to research if you haven't already, and I know with the support you have at your school and just the type of students that you are probably well beyond this point. Just make sure you know the very basic application requirements and the forms that are needed when you are applying to these schools. So whether it's the common application, coalition application, if you're applying through QuestBridge, the QuestBridge application, and any individual writing supplement for each particular school. We will also require your transcript, obviously, from your school. We'll require letters of recommendation from your teachers, and we'll talk about that a little later as well, and a letter of recommendation from your counselor as well. How you present yourself in the application is always very important to us. We want to get a really great picture of who you are as a person so we can see what you've done in your community, so we can see how you've impacted your high school and how those impacts will transfer onto our campuses. So it's very important to take these applications seriously, especially in your writing. And in your writing for individual college supplements. So each college where you apply will ask you, in many cases, why this college? And so therefore it's important for you to give a very detailed response to that question. Brown, for example, has an open curriculum. We don't have any core or distribution requirements at Brown. So when you're answering our writing supplement questions, we want to make sure that you've at least done your homework on Brown to know that we have an open curriculum and your educational path at Brown is determined by you. Some other colleges have a core curriculum where every student on that college campus will take the same set of courses in addition to their major and some electives as well. And some students really value that as a learning tool, and they really want that experience. So they choose to write about that and how that's going to impact their experience and how much they need that for themselves. So when you're responding to these individual school applications, please make sure that you're being as detailed as possible and that you've done as much research as you can. In normal years, that may include visiting a college's campus, and that is in many cases just not possible right now. However, colleges have set up online tours, they've set up virtual information sessions. Many of my colleagues at Brown and at other colleges and universities are doing things like this with individual high schools and taking part in these sessions. So it's really great that you are out there getting these resources now. So congratulations on that, because you're only going to be even more well prepared when you're applying to these colleges. So you'll have a leg up and you'll be able to write specifically about these colleges. I mentioned before that admission officers at colleges are indeed resources for applicants. It's our job to answer your questions. So if you have gone on a virtual tour, if you've sat through an information session, if after today you still have questions that are unanswered, it's my job to answer those questions. So please don't hesitate to write to me. Your counselor has my contact information. I can drop my contact information in the chat later, so you'll be able to email me. If after any questions that you have, I'm happy to answer them. So I guess the overall in the application process, schools like Brown and other highly selective schools, we receive so many more applications than we have spaces available. So we evaluate applications holistically. That means that no one component of your application is going to disqualify you from consideration for that school. So we look at it as a total picture. So whether that is your academic piece, your extracurricular piece, what your teachers write about you, and how you present yourself in the application. So the most important thing that I want to tell you is to be yourself in your application. When you are writing about your interests, about your extracurricular activities, about anything in your application, it's important to be genuine, because we can sense when we're reading about, when we're reading your essays, we can sense when a student is excited about something, because it just kind of leaps off the paper. And that way we can tell that you are really being yourself and you have things that you're excited about and that you're excited about sharing with us. On that note, try to avoid writing what you think we want to hear. That's not necessarily useful. We want to know how you specifically are going to come to Brown or wherever you are thinking of applying and impact our campus in your own unique way. So if you look at our website, and we have all of these wonderful pieces of information on our website, everything that we say that we're proud of as an institution, and if you just come back and copy and paste those specific bullet points, that's not necessarily unique to your situation. And we want to make sure that you're giving us a good, unique picture of who you are. How do you be yourself in the college application process, and how do you stand out among thousands and thousands and thousands of applicants? That can be pretty difficult. I completely understand the burden there. What I would advise you to do is with your counselor and maybe with one other adult in your life, everything you write, everything you think about including in your application, you should run it by that one person. A friend of mine who works for another school always says that, you know, if your college essay, if you left your college essay on the lunch table and it didn't have your name on it, and if your best friend picked up that piece of paper and read your essay, your best friend should know that that was your essay without your name on it, because it was very specific to you. So anything can make for a good essay topic, no matter how mundane you think it is. I've read wonderful essays about riding the bus to school. I've read wonderful essays about fast food. I've read wonderful essays about how a specific family member has impacted a student, whether it be their educational path or what they're interested in pursuing as a career. So as long as you're writing about something that's personal to you, it's going to be a good essay because you're excited about it. I think that, again, you shouldn't try to be something that you're not. So if you are thinking that you want to write a humorous essay, make sure that the people in your life think that you have a good sense of humor and that it can be conveyed appropriately in writing. That can be a little hard to do, but again, that's where your counselor, that's where another person who's close to you comes into play when you're submitting your application. Some schools, and Brown is not one of these schools, but some schools where you may be applying may practice this. Some schools do take into account what's called demonstrated interest. So, and it's a question that you can ask the representative of that school. Do you take demonstrated interest into account? That means that if you have not emailed the college, if you have not picked up the phone and called the college, they're going to notice that in the application process. Like I said, not all schools practice this. Brown does not track that. And some schools this year may be a little more lenient. Of course, I don't think any college or university is expecting a student to have visited campus this year before applying. That's just unrealistic. but a school may take into account how serious your level of interest is in that university. So again, as you're going through this process, ask your counselor, ask the school's individual representative if that's a factor in the admission process. Overall, what is not going to change about this year is that academics are important to us, okay? We want to see that you've challenged yourself in high school. We want to see that you've done well. We want to see that that you are prepared to handle the work on this college campus. So that's important when we're evaluating applications, and that's always going to be very important to us. Additionally, we'll want to see, going hand in hand with that, letters of recommendation from your teachers. Now, this is where it gets a little different this year. We realize that the world, especially for high school students, really changed in March. You went home in the middle of March. Instead of having a full 9-month academic year with your teachers, you had 6 months. So maybe your junior year teachers, you did not have a chance to build a relationship with your junior year teachers that classes before you had that opportunity to build relationships with them. And they can't speak to a full year of academic progress. We completely understand that. And so therefore we know that teacher recommendations may not be as robust this year as they were in years past. And that's not going to disadvantage a student in this application process. We're completely understanding of the circumstances this year. Additionally, if you feel more comfortable having a letter of recommendation come from a teacher you had in 10th grade, if that teacher taught a rigorous course in a core subject, we're more than happy to accept that as a letter of recommendation. Try, if you can, to get junior year letters of recommendation, but we'll be understanding and accommodating if that's not a possibility for you. Ms. Lewin, I hate to break it to you, but your counselor letter is going to be important, very important this year. Not to put on any stress, and Ms. Lewin always writes wonderful evaluations, and they're always very helpful. But your counselor has it works very closely with you, and we know that. I have no doubt that her letters are going to be excellent and portray you in the best light. So I don't think you have to worry about that. So what we get from these letters of recommendation from your teachers and your counselor is a sense of who you are in the academic environment and in the school environment overall. We get a sense of how you are in the classroom. So what type of classmate you are, what type of learner you are, what type of student you are, what's the quality of the work that you produce. And that's important because we want those qualities to translate into classrooms on our campuses. From your counselor letter and from your self-presentation, we learn how you are outside of the classroom, what kind of activities you enjoy, what was your research project, what do you play sports, do you play an instrument, do you have family responsibilities? So all of that we really take into account as well, because we want you to be active on our campuses outside of the classroom. We have a ton of resources at these colleges and universities, and we want you to come and we want you to use these resources to make an impact on our campuses, but also when you leave, wherever you end up after you go to college. If you end up back in your hometown, if you end up back in a new city, we want you to take your qualities along with the resources and additional qualities you've developed at Brown and be able to continue to make an impact where you go after you leave college. In terms of changes in the evaluation process this year, if your school switched its grading policy last year to pass, fail, or satisfactory, no credit, or anything like that, you will not be disadvantaged in the process at Brown. We understand that that was the best reality and best choice for most high schools last year, was to switch to that model. So if that happened, if that happened in your case, don't worry about that. We know that you've taken rigorous classes and that you passed the classes, and we're evaluating it in context. In terms of extracurricular activities, look, if you were on the swim team and the pool closed because of COVID-19, we realize that you can no longer be on the swim team. There's going to be an interruption in your extracurricular activities. If you were in marching band and marching band could no longer practice, we completely realize that there's going to be a gap in that. If your research project was canceled or suspended because it was not safe to be in the lab or be close to others on the team, we completely understand that. Students will not be disadvantaged because of COVID-19 interrupting their extracurricular activities. If you want to, there's an additional information section in as part of the common application where you can share the things that you were hoping to do your senior year that you're not able to because of the virus. But again, we will be completely understanding, knowing that this was a huge interruption for students and their progression, not only inside the classroom, but outside of the classroom as well. Hopefully, sooner rather than later, we can get back to participating in these activities and sports and music and art, but we are evaluating applications in context, and we know that this is a major part of that context. One other thing about extracurricular activities that I always really want to mention is that don't just think of extracurricular activities as school-sponsored events. So if you work a part-time job, if you have family responsibilities where you're responsible for caring for younger siblings or parent or grandparent, please do consider that an extracurricular activity, because that's hours that you spend each week really contributing to something important. And it also gives us a broader context of how you're spending your time. So that's something that we really, really enjoy seeing what you're doing, not only with your school-sponsored events, but also with your out-of-school activities as well. So that's something that I personally really like to see, what you're doing outside of the classroom as well. I guess I want to kind of wrap things up, because I would love to answer any questions that you have, if that's okay with the powers that be. I just want to just give words of encouragement to you all. You've already been through a lot, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. You've already been through a lot in your high school experience over the past 6 months. And I can't imagine going through what you all are going through as high school students when I was in high school a million years ago. It's okay to be it's okay to be nervous, it's okay to be apprehensive. There's a lot of uncertainty, but like I said at the beginning of the session, we as college admission officers are a resource for you, and we're here for you to answer your questions, no matter how simple you might think a question is. We're really sensitive to this process and making it as easy for you in this time to navigate. So your questions are important. Don't be shy to ask questions, and keep working hard. Enjoy what you can of this year. The one positive that you can kind of look toward is that you're still learning stuff. And learning things is fun, and that's something that if you have that joy of learning, that's going to make it a lot easier for you to log on every day and go to class virtually. It's going to be an advantage for you when you get to college and you're just browsing through a course catalog and seeing like these classes that you know, you might not have a background in that particular subject, but you're reading the course description, and because you love learning, you think, wow, that's really great, I want to take this class. And then you go to class and you learn this completely different subject and perspective that you never even thought about before. So stay focused on things like that, and really making the most out of the opportunity to learn, because it is a gift to be able to have access to an education. So, Ms. Lewin, am I able to answer questions, or is there anything else you want me to cover?
Yes, I would love to open up with questions. I mean, you just covered some great topics that I know the students, it's on their mind for sure. So yes, let's go ahead and open up questions. So I am happy to do this either way. And just to also clarify, like Mr. Price said at the beginning, he is working with Brown, but he's also sharing information about, you know, the general application process. So your questions definitely gear towards that general application process. So we can do this where you can type a question in the chat, or you can come off your mic and video, and I would love for you guys to jump in and ask questions.
And so would I.
Also, to let you know, we do have our principal in the group, and I also think I saw one of our wonderful engineering teachers in the group.
Hey, Mr. Price, I want to say thank you. I'm Amanda Baskett, our director. I'm so excited for our seniors to be able to hear these words from you. I was kind of geeking out with Miss Lewin on text about how perfect your message was for this group at this time. So students, I hope some of that resonated with you. And then I also hope you realize that we have with us a representative from Brown ready to take your questions, even if they're weird. I mean, you know, you can type them in the chat box. Even don't be afraid. We've got to use these opportunities. You are applying to college at a time that's different from anybody else before you. So, you know, there's always like a billion questions about this process, and now it's like a billion times 2. So, so if you'll put them in the chat box, then we can certainly, you know, relay or help facilitate that, or you can just unmute your mic to ask.
Great, and thank you. And I love weird questions. I'm a weird person, so.
So are we. We like quirky here. Okay, so a great question. The question in the chat box is, do you encourage students to include resumes in their application?
You know, I think resume can be really helpful, especially in this time where like I said before, there could be some disruptions to your extracurricular activities. So some schools like Brown require the Common Application. So the Common Application does a really good job of giving you the opportunity to list all the activities that you participate in, and that's fine. But a resume can give you a little more flexibility to more fully explain something like a research project that could be included on a resume. But if you feel like the Common Application listing of your extracurricular activities is satisfactory, there's no need to send additional documentation. So it really is up to you. I never mind seeing a resume, so it's fine by me. But if it's a major point of stress for you, you don't have to do it.
Okay, there is a question for you for Brown, but it's if Brown is test optional, but I would also like to add to that question, can you share with students where they can find if a school is test optional?
Oh yeah, that's a really good question. So yes, for this year, Brown is test optional. So if you did not have the opportunity to safely and conveniently take standardized testing, you will not be at a disadvantage in the process. So we are test optional for this year. Many schools have made that move this year. And I would say because it's a topic that is really on the top of a lot of students' minds, colleges like Brown, it's pretty much the first thing you see when you log on to our admission website. So I would say for the colleges where you are interested in applying, check their website. It's probably right there. If it's not right there, or if it's kind of ambiguous, or if you have any questions whatsoever, send that college an email, and they'll get back to you, because we're all really, we all want to be responsive in this time and getting back to students with their questions, especially about testing.
Okay, I've got a question. If you can share a little bit, why would a student choose to go early decision to a school that they're interested in? What are some either perks to going early decision, or maybe things that they need to think about?
Yeah, so early decision is a binding decision, is a binding policy at schools. It's not like early action, which is the same timeline but not binding, and it's obviously not like regular decision. So early decision means that if you are applying early decision to Brown, that means that you sign a form, your parent signs a form, and your counselor signs a form stating, if I am admitted to Brown early decision, I will attend Brown. And in an ideal world, that's great, because that means that Brown is your #1 choice. You got into Brown early decision, and you're done with the application process for the rest of your senior year. That's a huge advantage, or perk, if you will, in that you know where you are going to college mid-December. You have 3 months between January and March to just concentrate, on your senior year, concentrate on your work, concentrate on what you love about school, knowing that you have been admitted early decision to that college or university that was your #1 choice. I will say, if you are a top student and if you're a good match for Brown, Brown's going to find you whether or not you apply early decision or regular decision. The #1 reason why a student would not apply to a binding early decision program is financial aid. Because if you are admitted to that binding early decision program, you're also bound to that financial aid package. If the financial aid does not work out, you would have to withdraw your application altogether. So that's something that you should keep in mind. If you want to compare different financial aid packages from different colleges and universities, it might be a better decision for you to wait to apply regular decision to other colleges, to a bunch of colleges and universities at the same time. I'm kind of speaking from a Brown specific and like a Brown and our peer specific lens when it comes to early decision, and we'll find you whether or not you apply early. For some colleges and universities, it is very advantageous for students to apply early decision. Some colleges and universities really like that students are so excited about that college or university that they have agreed to this binding program. So I think most colleges that are where it is an advantage for students to apply early, most colleges are very upfront about that, and they will share that information with you and your counselor. So again, it's a question to ask that specific college or a representative from that specific college, especially if you know 100% that you're going to be happy there.
Awesome. Okay. There is another question. What are your thoughts on getting recommendations from people outside of the school? And if someone were to get an outside of school recommendation, where would they put this in their application?
Yep. So in terms of submitting outside of school letters of recommendation, I think that might vary from school to school. Some schools may have it set up where you where this person might be able to submit it through something like Common App or something like that, while other schools may just ask these outside recommendation letters to come in over email. It needs to come from the recommender themselves. So you can't send it, you can't upload it on behalf of that person because we want it sent directly to us. When it comes to asking people from outside your school to send a letter of recommendation, most colleges will accept that. But we require what we require to make a decision because that's what we believe we need to make that decision. So, for example, at Brown, we think through your letter of recommendation from your counselor and 2 letters of recommendation from core subject teachers, so English, math, science, social science, or foreign language, we think that that gives us a good picture of who you are as a student and as a person. If you want to submit a supplementary letter of recommendation from anyone outside of the school, whether it is a music teacher or even a coach or an employer or a mentor, that's fine. But I would advise you to make sure that it's someone who knows you in a completely different capacity than your classroom teachers and your counselor, so that they may be able to give us new information in that supplementary letter of recommendation. Because we're going to have 3 letters of recommendation already telling us about your academic achievements and your achievements inside the school.
All right, I am just awesome questions. Okay, so I'm going to jump and answer one of them quickly. You can only apply to one school early decision. So you can't apply to more than one school early decision. There's a question that says, how do you think being test optional is going to impact college admissions? I bet that's a question that you guys are talking about every day.
Yeah, and I think that we're, because we've always evaluated applications holistically, I think we're kind of at an advantage to kind of make a move and start evaluating applications that may not have test scores. So again, we've always taken into account the classes that the students take in and how rigorous those classes are, how robust that student's extracurricular profile is, what the letters of recommendation from the teachers are saying, and how the student presents themselves in the how the students present themselves in the application. So we've already we've always been doing evaluations based on multiple characteristics of an application. So not having one data point, I don't think is going to be as big of a problem for many places that practice holistic admission.
There is 2 questions that came through about teacher recommendations. So I want to answer it the way that I think, and also want to hear your feedback, Mr. Price. So the question is, does research count as a core class? So for us, our research course is a science number. So I do tell students that it does count as a core because it is considered a science class. So if you saw a teacher recommendation letter from a class called research, what would be your thoughts on that?
All good.
Okay, great. Okay, awesome question. Okay, so I send out in the students' packets with their recommendation letters and school secondary report, transcripts, all of that information. I also send out the students' research abstracts. So one question student asks is like, how does that work? What role does that play in the application process?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So when when students ask me if when they're working on research, they ask me, "Can I submit my research paper?" I say, "You can, but I won't understand it." And so that's where an abstract is very, very useful. So it's brief, it's concise, it breaks it down so that admission officers can understand the research. on a basic level. So we will see, if you list it as an extracurricular activity, we will see that in your extracurriculars that you're working on research. And but the abstracts are very helpful because it gives us more context without overcomplicating things.
Wonderful. We have some students that take courses at a school within our county, and it's called Rockdale Career Academy. So some examples of classes our students may take are like healthcare, anatomy, physiology, veterinary science, cybersecurity. Would you consider those classes for teachers?
I think that's that's kind of a gray area. So I would probably advise against that as a core letter of recommendation. I will say that if you can satisfy the 2 letters of recommendation from core subjects, but your anatomy and physiology teacher can also give a reference in a completely different light, then you're welcome to submit that as a 3rd supplementary letter of recommendation.
Wow, seniors, these are awesome questions. We do have a few more minutes, just a couple minutes if we want to get maybe like 2 questions in.
Yeah, I just also,
super.
These are really wonderful questions, and I'm happy to meet with you. Wish it was in person, but I'm really happy that you all are here, and thank you so much for participating.
Yes, this is wonderful. Okay, so if we don't have any more questions, I would love for you guys to turn on your mics and just give a thank you to Mr. Price for his time this afternoon.
Thank you.
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 Yeah, that was really good. Thank you.
Check out the chat box because he did leave his email address.
Yes. Oh, and I see my good friend Jonathan was here too. So good to see you.
Yes. So he is our afternoon speaker. Very excited.
Looking forward to it. Good to see you, Matt.
Coincidence that we have 2 round reps that wasn't planned on purpose, but we've got to always have our alumni come back and speak. We love our alumni.
Great, and he's the best.
Thanks, Matt. It's all you, though. All you.
All right. Well, I put my my email address in the chat again, and Mrs. Lewin has my email address, and she's more than welcome to share it with you all if you have any questions. I wish you all the best of luck this year. I wish you all safety and good health and excellent work inside the classroom. And thank you so much for meeting with me today.
Thank you so much. So good to see you.